So public safety, let me just share with you a couple of numbers. Over the past 4 years, there have been in 10,500 shootings in Chicago. These are attempts on people's lives. Over 1,800 homicides over that same period. The mayor, when he ran 4 years ago, promised to hire 1,000 additional police officers because we're not staffed at the levels that the police department needs to be staffed. And granted, there are problems with the police department, as in many major cities. The police department is not reflective of the population of the communities that they patrol, etc. I've put forth a 4-point plan for addressing public safety, including embracing community policing in Chicago. We haven't had an initiative of community policing to establish relationships of trust and mutual respect between community residents, especially in the most affected communities in Chicago, those that have the highest levels of violence, and police officers. If there's anything to be learned in the aftermath of Ferguson, New York, and more recently Madison, is that there is a gulf that separates the perceptions that people have of each other in terms of public safety. That's why community policing is paramount in Chicago, so that we cease being perhaps the most violent city in the country. Number two, when you have officers engaging in community policing, you also need to increase other tools and their availability for community residents. Restorative justice is a practice that I believe can reduce a lot of violence, especially among young people in Chicago. It's the practice where you bring two people in conflict, a perpetrator, a victim, you sit with them with a group of peers, there's an apology made, there's a restoration made, the victim accepts the apology, a group stands, bears witness to the reconciliation and the healing that is going on, and then they can move forward. The perpetrator learns the consequences of his or her actions, and the community stands as a witness to what's happened and helps both of them move on so that you don't have a repeat of it. What happens is that you rebuild, you reconstruct the torn fabric that has occurred, instead of that case winding up in the hands of a police officer who may or may not be interested in resolving and reconciling and all of that, a juvenile judge, because the case is then referred to a juvenile judge, and then a juvenile probation officer. The idea is that you put the onus of restoring and healing back on the community instead of institutionalizing young people. It has a lot of potential. I've been working on this topic for the last 9 years, as part of my community involvement and practice. It needs to be spread throughout the city of Chicago. Several foundations in Chicago have already embraced it, and we're going to roll out its expansion earlier this year. It'll just coincide with my election as mayor of the city of Chicago. So, and a chief proponent of the practice. The fourth point would be, and this one is more challenging given the fiscal straits the city finds itself in, increasing the number of jobs available to young people. Summertime and after school. So there, part of my agenda will be to challenge the business community downtown to open up and provide more of these opportunities. You want to rid the city of a reputation of being one of the most violent in the country. We need to provide jobs for young people. So that's my 4-point plan.